What's going on, guys? Q&A video time again. Actually, this time a bit of a positive and negatives. I've included a mix of different things in here. So let's get straight into it. First one from David. Good old great video. Thanks, David. This was on my Energy Gel Buyer's Guide video. I've been recommended HBCD for using in my bottles with a gel or two every hour. How does HBCD fit into the picture? So HBCD, that's clickbait, Cyclic-dextrin. It's big in the gym scene. It's not that, I very rarely hear people talk about it in the cycling scene. It's basically a form of carbohydrates, manufactured carbohydrates, kind of similar to maltodextrin, except it's kind of opposite of maltodextrin in that it's low GI. The carbohydrates go through a manufacturing process which makes them slower to digest. They say it can be easier on the stomach and it's lower GI, so lower blood sugar spike. So that's why it's quite popular in the gym scene, because all the people in the gym are scared of carbs and they want low GI carbs. For cycling, though, when you're exercising, couple of concerns I'd have. Firstly, you want higher GI carbs when you're exercising, so they're able to be taken up by your muscles faster and provide you energy. So you're looking for that more high GI carbs. That's things like beta fuel, Morton, maltodextrin. Most of these cycling specific or endurance sport carbohydrate products are higher GI because that's what you want while you're exercising. Other thing is clickbait is going to be dextrose only, which is just glucose. There's no fructose in there. So if you're going for that moderate into the upper range of carbs per hour, 60 or more grams per hour, you're going to be wanting some fructose in there, and you're not going to get that with the HBCD alone. So maybe having it with some gels could be fine, but it's not really something I'd recommend. A bit unnecessary. I'd stick with the regular gels that I recommended in that video, or just using the sugar where you're getting that glucose and the fructose. Maybe if you have really bad guts and you find you get sick when you have that more of simple sugar, higher GI carbs, maybe there's something in it to try, but it'd be quite far down the list for me. Next question from James Green on my r/velo go shopping for a cycling coach video. So a bit of a story here. So James was paying 280 euros every 3 months for a cycling coach. The coach was Imogen Cotter from Panache Coaching. So this was their entry-level package, so pretty cheap, like 90-something euro a month to get a weekly plan on Training Peaks. The coach was very responsive with comments and messages, text messages, phone calls whenever, although the package said it didn't include that. So maybe going a bit above what it was advertised. But you know, he said here he spent a lot of money on cycling over the years, but it was probably the best money he ever spent. So that's awesome. Glad he enjoyed being coached and thought that was a positive experience. My comment on this was, I do think coaches offering that level of service for that level of money, as good as it is for someone like James to get that level of service for quite cheap, I do think coaches need to charge a proper rate for the service they're providing and for their career. Because what happens is, this is all coaches are paying. It's something they might do when they're still riding. Maybe when they're in uni, they do a bit of coaching as some part-time work. But if that's all they're charging, it's never going to be a long-term career option. And what I actually responded to this comment, I said, great, you're paying that, but I just wish coaches valued the work they did more and took more of a longer-term approach. Because if you want to be a full-time cycling coach and you want to do it as a career, you need to charge, obviously, a price that is a living, workable solution for you financially. And if coaches aren't charging that, we're going to see good coaches fall through the cracks and they'll move on. They're not going to want to coach for that price. And the other thing that could happen as well that I start to see is, if people are in the sports science scene, in cycling, endurance sport, and they want a coaching career, what they'll end up doing is going for the salary jobs, the ones at the Institute of Sports, things like that, that have a guaranteed, more stable income, more consistent income out of the box, because it's an advertised price. And that's where you'll see coaches go. And then what it's going to do is create less, it's just going to drop the quality of coaches doing private coaching. And I think most of you out there, if you are hiring a coach, you want access to good coaches, knowledgeable coaches. To do that, they're going to have to charge a decent price. So that's just my 2 cents on that one. Next one, David Brooks. This was on my UK crit, the cornering video. I'm sorry, but I have to comment. Cool. Like, I love the comments. That's what we want. We want discussion. So your advice about locating your weight is completely incorrect. In cornering, you get low and lean forward. Yes, I do agree. You do need to get low, lean forward to increase the weight on the front wheel. This increases the frictional force and prevents the front wheel from washing out. Please remove this video and redid it. No, I'm not going to remove the video. I'm happy to discuss in the comments. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but I do think I'm right in that what I'm saying is what I feel in cornering, and I do think it's right in that if you're railing a corner at 60k an hour, your tire is already on the limit of the grip. There's only a certain contact patch your tire's got, and if you're already pushing the limits of what the tire can grip, putting more weight through the front wheel isn't going to magically give you more grip because you've only got a certain contact patch. So another way to think about it is think about when you're cornering in the wet. This is how I think about it. If it's wet, your tires have less grip. If you're cornering in the wet, no, you want less. If you're cornering in the wet, you want less pressure through the front wheel because your tire's just going to slide out. Pushing further down, putting more weight over the front wheel in the wet isn't going to magically give you more grip. No, you've got a limit. There's a limit to the amount of grip a tire can give you. And if you're on that limit, putting more weight through it is just going to make it slide out more easily. I know the physics side of things are like, no, more weight through the front, more weight through the tire means it deflects more, gives you more grip. Well, yes, if you're going at slow speeds, but when you're already on the limits of the grip of the tire in the first place, more pressure through that is just going to make it slide out. Anyway, I've ranted about that enough. Moving on. Next on, we've got Scott here. This was on my cycling. What does a cycling coach actually do? He says, about how many clients does it take for a cycling coach to make a living at it? So following on from the other comment earlier in the video, well, if you're charging like 90 something euros per rider, you're going to need, how many clients are you going to need? I don't know, 70, 80? And are you going to be able to provide that service to that many clients and give them that level of feedback? No. Therefore, it's not a full-time career option. So I would say, it depends whether a coach is living, that sort of thing. But if you can charge more in that above 200 Australian dollars per month bracket, it means that you can, it's not a license to print money. You're not going to be making heaps of money, but it can be a decent living. Other problem with this though is that if you're a coach who's part of a bigger coaching company and they're taking a cut, maybe they're taking 20% of your coaching fees, then you can start to see you lose your money. So it totally depends. But in general, you're going to be needing at least 20 riders to coach unless you're charging like a super premium price. Like there's some coaches in the US charge like thousands of dollars a month. They don't need as many, but if you're charging a regular price, you're going to need at least, probably at least 25 riders to make it a livable full-time income. Next comment from David Coates, again on the cycling coach video. Love your videos, Jesse. Do you coach juniors? Yes, I do. And if so, what's the youngest junior you'd consider coaching? I see some juniors riding quite seriously, attending bigger cycling events, things like that. Can you hear your thoughts? So this one, quick answer is I usually say in the Australian school system, I'd say year 10 is when you would start probably considering getting a cycling coach. Below that, you could have like an instructor, I think is good. Like a lot of the junior cycling clubs will have instructors riding around, showing them skills, making sure they're safe, learn to ride in groups and things like that. But year 10 in Australia is usually around 16 years old. And that's when you might start to be taking the cycling more seriously and could get benefit from the cycling coach. Below that age, you're probably better off doing a mixture of sports, doing different school sports, cycling for fun, learning to improve your skills, improve your bike handling, probably doing also some strength or muscle or load-bearing exercises like, I don't know, maybe doing rugby training and you're running, or you're doing swimming, or you're doing some weight training, things like that is healthy. Next question. On my sauna tent video, this is an older video. If you haven't seen the sauna tent one, recommend go watching it. From Zwaman, why not just do 60 to 90 minute turbo sessions without cooling? So good question. That is called active heat acclimation, so exercising in the heat. That works. It can be good. The reason why doing something like a sauna tent, which is passive heat acclimation, can be good is because you can still do your intense training in your cooler conditions, so you're maintaining your power output and maintaining your fitness. Then you get your heat acclimation elsewhere. Think about this. If you're doing 60 to 90 minute turbo sessions in the heat, if you're trying to do that every day, your power output in the heat's not going to be very high. You're going to be limiting the amount of higher intensity training you can do with a good power output. So over the series of weeks, your actual on-bike power output, your fitness might drop off, even though you're getting acclimated to the heat. With the sauna tent, you can get the best of both worlds. You get really good on-bike intense training at your regular temperatures. Then you get acclimated to the heat alongside that. And then you end up just as fit as you were before, maybe even a little bit stronger through that really good quality on-bike training. And you get your heat acclimation alongside that. Next question from Ethan Adkins on my energy gel buyer's guide video. 450 milligrams of caffeine in a single race seems potent. Do you spread the caffeine or load towards the end of the race? Both. So I would say if you're doing, let's say you're doing a 6-hour race, I would say move the caffeine to the second half of it if you can. But also spread it out. So you might have your first caffeine. Let's say you're using the SIS gels that have 150 milligrams of caffeine in them. You might have the first caffeine gel at 2.5, 3 hours in, and then have another gel every 45 minutes to an hour to take you to the end of the race. You might have one at 3 hours in, 4 hours in, 5 hours in, and split the dose that way. Next one from Richard Middleton on the Duran Rider low-fat diet, that analysis video. BS. Endurance athletes actually need more protein, especially older athletes. Not all cycling is about sitting in the saddle at a steady wattage up a long alpine climb. Yes, endurance athletes do need more protein than the average person, but that's what I said. I said in the video, endurance athletes should be looking to get 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which is already above what the average person should get. I'm pretty sure, off the top of my head, the average... The protein recommendations for a normal human is like 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. So 1.2 to 1.5 is already above that. So yes, they do need more protein, especially older athletes to maintain muscle mass. That's why you would want more protein, yes. But again, 1.2 to 1.5 grams, you might want to go, if you're a bit older, you might want to head towards the upper end of that range. But 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein is a lot of protein. So I'm not sure... Yeah, I'm not sure what he's sort of getting at here. Not all cycling is about sitting in the saddle at a steady wattage up a long alpine climb. No, that is true. But again, 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight, which as I said in the video was the upper range, is quite a lot of protein. You will see some people recommending more than that, like up to 1.8, maybe 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. I really honestly think that's unnecessary unless you're in a severe calorie deficit and your body is potentially going to start breaking down your muscle. Then yeah, you more protein can be helpful, but I don't really recommend that low of a calorie deficit anyway. I don't know why anyone would be cutting their calories that low, that their body's in this starvation mode where the higher protein could help. So for the normal person doing a normal amount of training, eating a healthy diet, you don't need 1.82 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight unless you're like a bodybuilder. Yeah, so anyway, that's my thoughts on that. This one on the vegan cyclist fasting video. How is autophagy a non-scientific area? It's certainly not pseudoscience. It's well-researched, understood area. I'd argue most athletes would benefit from the protocols that which trigger autophagy and therefore enhance performance. It's certainly not a non-scientific term. It's not autophagy is a thing that happens in the body. But in my entire exercise and sports science degree, I didn't hear this term mentioned once. It's not something I really ever hear as being something that can be manipulated in the realm of training and endurance performance to get to increase your gains. Like it's all the autophagy thing is always something mentioned by like the sort of the bro science, the pseudoscience people that are like, oh, you gotta do your fasting and then your cells eat each other and then your unhealthy cells die off and it makes you this amazing superhuman. The biohackers, yeah, it's in the biohacking crowd. They're the only people they're the only people I see really talking about it. So in that sense, it's by the charlatans, the pseudoscience crowd that use the term, even though the term is a scientific term, they've twisted it in a way and made it out as if it's this amazing protocol you have to do, which I've never really seen mentioned by anyone I respect in the sports science community. This comment on my I quit outdoor cycling video, and they said, why am I watching this? ? I said, not sure, why'd you click it? They said, the clickbait kick a bike in your thumbnail, bud. I was intrigued to know if your reasoning had anything to do with that product, but it doesn't. Yeah, so this brings up the clickbait thing. Yes, as a newer cycling channel with information that I feel is valuable and I want people to see, things need to be clickbaity. If the things aren't clickbait, people aren't going to click them. But I think the term clickbait, it kind of means that you click on something and you're like, oh, this video sucks. There's no good information in this. Why am I watching this? Whereas I do feel like in most of my videos, I try and provide good information or they're somewhat entertaining. So I don't like the term clickbait. I mean, I spend time making good, interesting thumbnails and titles and stuff like that. But that's because I want people to watch the videos. Actually, the only time I think I probably took that too far was in that Dan Bingham video about how I said like, oh, you can't afford drug testing, which is kind of true. But I kind of get that, maybe that was a bit too far. But actually that video got a lot of hate, and I actually rewatched that a few times to be like, was I wrong? Should I take this down? I rewatched it a couple of times and I was like, no, I stand by what I said, but I do think if I could go and redo it, I'd probably go a bit easier on the title of the video and the thumbnail. And yes, I could go in and change that now, but that changed the context of the comment. So I'm not going to go in and change the title or the thumbnail of the video now, because people have already left comments based on that. So it'd be a bit unfair to go and change it now. But yeah, I do think that's probably the only video where I probably went a bit far with the clickbait. So yeah, I'll I'll pay that one. Next question on my bike setup video: is 39/28 enough for climbing? So my smallest gear on my crankset is a 39 and my rear cassette is a 28. Is that enough for climbing? That is a pretty big gear. I think a lot of the time most people should be going for a 50-34 at the front, a compact crankset. That would give them, for most people, a 34/28. Or if you're running a 32 cassette on the back, a 34/32, which would be better for climbing for most people. I actually ran a compact crankset for my first year in the National Road Series. I raced with it fine, no issues. I thought it was quite good. But the 39/28 for me, I would say if I'm in a race and the 39/28 isn't enough, I'm probably not going to be in it with a chance of getting results, because if I'm doing a hard effort in the 39/28 and the gearing, and that's not enough gearing for me, it must be a very steep gradient. And if it's a very steep gradient, I'm not going to be in the mix for results, because I'm not a pure climber. I'm a heavier rider. So in that case, I'm quite happy I'm probably just trying to get to the finish. I'm quite happy to grind it out in a bit too big of a gear. But that's because I'm racing. I've still got that sort of racing mentality of, oh well, if that gear's not easy enough, I'm not in the mix. I'm quite happy to grind it out. If I was doing more like Grand Fondos, that sort of thing, and I wanted an optimal gear for climbing, then yeah, I probably would go with an easier cassette. I might put a 32 cassette on the back. So that's it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one.